Progressive Planet, we do clean tech naturally. So, critical innovations for two major problems. I started out with a pilot plant in 2018, and we had milling operations in a fabric tent, and there's one gentleman in this room that saw us, Martin Bedard, here, the good-looking guy halfway down with the pink kerchief. He saw us when we were an idea. We had two customers where we milled soft rock phosphate. We had one operating permitted zeolite mine, and we began experimenting with post-consumer glass as a material to replace Portland cement. And really, since that time, we made our sort of keystone acquisition 15 months ago when we bought a company that's been around since 1989 called Absorbent Products, which is now Progressive Planet Products. And I want to acknowledge, coming all the way from Kamloops, BC, our senior plant manager, Andrew Towsley, is sitting here in the seat I was sitting in. We have business in Montreal over and above presenting here tonight, and we are excited to be in Montreal. This is the first time that Andrew and I have been on the road trip together, so Montreal is my favorite city. A little story, I'm a lifelong Habs fan from St. John's, Newfoundland, born in Ireland, grew up in St. John's. When I was just finished university, my best friend and I decided we'd go see the Habs in the Forum, got seats behind the net, and watched Patrick Waugh let in 9 goals and quit. That is the one and only time I got to see the Habs, my favorite team. And I guess now it's kind of a neat piece of history that I was there for that night, but that is that's my hockey nostalgia story. Really, I'm extremely passionate about what we do. We have this base business, 60 employees. The replacement cost to replace what we own today in buildings, property, plant, equipment, mines, IP that's being commercialized, about $50 million. And we've got about a $25 million market cap. We have this base business, and we are using that to basically innovate to solve two major problems. And if you want to talk about size of market, the global cement industry is $363 billion. And if the cement industry, if the production of Portland cement was a country, it would be the third biggest emitter of CO2 in the world behind China and the USA, bigger than India. And then the fertilizer industry just in North America alone is 60 billion US. So there is a major tailwinds supporting us, demand driven for more low carbon products, and virtually everything that we produce comes from volcanic ash minerals in industrial mines that we own within 120 kilometers of our base in Kamloops, BC. So I just talked about the growth pillars. So we've got this vertically integrated manufacturing facility. We acquired Absorbent on February 18th, 2022. It was a leveraged deal. We borrowed $11 million from the Bank of Montreal. And at the time, I thought we had incredible floating interest rates, and then the central bankers decided to keep me up at night, and I'm not competing with that. So we borrowed $11 million. It was a $16.3 million deal. The company had done $18.8 million in the prior year, and we inherited the company almost to the day that we hit peak inflation. And in the first 72 days of acquiring the company, from February 18th to our fiscal year end of April 30th, we operated with a gross margin of 12.7%. Proud to say that today we're at about 29% gross margin a year later. So from this vertically integrated manufacturing, we have a team of professionals that have allowed us to start developing alternative cements and alternative fertilizers with the common denominator that we are using materials from our own operation, waste powders, byproduct powders, and with the only exception of post-consumer glass, which is an urban mining, and we're using a source of waste. Tremendous energy put into creating glass, and we've got a patent pending in 156 countries where we've developed a cement material that sequesters CO2 in real time during the production process and is significantly stronger than Portland with a fraction of the environmental footprint. So as a company that's been around since 1989, we ship over 2 million products. There's a bunch of names that we're not allowed to put on here, but I'm going to say them. We're in every Canadian Tire in Canada, 585. We supply all of, so we supply Costco in BC with cat litter, Co-op, Loblaws, Tractor Supply. We're in 2,103 stores in the U.S. throughout the entire continental U.S. with 4 products. All of them come from our diatomaceous earth, the Red Lake diatomaceous earth mine, 58 kilometers from Kamloops. Home hardware. Some of the Can-Dry is a leading industrial absorbent. WonderCat. You guys may and ladies may be surprised to know that cat litter on a retail level is a $1 billion business in Canada. We don't sell fur coats. We sell consumer staples. If you get laid off and you're unemployed, your cat pees and poops the exact same amount. In fact, during recessions, you're less likely to go to Jiffy Lube and get an oil change, and you're more likely to do it in your driveway, spill the oil, and then go to Canadian Tire and buy Can-Dry. So we actually tend to do better during recessions. The third, activated barn fresh. This is intellectual property that was within Absorbent when we bought it. There's 10 years left on that IP. It is a combination of citric acid and our diatomaceous earth. It's used to neutralize ammonia in chicken barns, specifically organic chicken barns. In Canada, the CFIA requires that every time that you harvest broilers, which is every 8 weeks, that you scrape and clean your floor and replace it with clean sawdust or your bedding material. In the US, there's no such regulation. And you can have the same bedding for 5 years. It's maybe a little gross, but it is what it is. So for organic certified broiler houses, they can't use sulfuric acid, which is what is used in non-organic barns to neutralize ammonia. And so we are a sweet spot for high margin. Nobody else can use citric, and there is a tariff of 300% if you attempted to manufacture this product in the US and you brought in the citric from China. There's a 300% tariff. 59% of citric acid in the world is produced in China using low value sources of carbohydrate wastewater to ferment. So we import from China, and then we export to the States at under 40% content citric, and then bypass the tariff. It's our #1 seller. We've sold over $19 million of this product in the last 6 years. We're now looking at licensing it to third parties in this area of Canada to go down the eastern seaboard. We tend to be west of the Mississippi because of trucking. So we're looking to extract additional value from that, seeking a licensing partner to produce that in eastern Canada for export down through to the States. So chemical fertilizers. I'm a CPA by education. Material science is my passion, and I actually have a small farm, and I practice regenerative agriculture as best I can. The main issue with using chemical nitrogen fertilizer, which not coincidentally really started to be used after the end of World War II. The world, the global chemical machine needed new markets, and we started heavily using urea or chemical nitrogen in farming after World War II. The issue with nitrogen is that when you make nitrogen and you concentrate it chemically, you can reach up to 46% in a fertilizer. That is not physically possible in an organic source of nitrogen. You just cannot reach those concentrations. So chemical fertilizer allows you to grow food in very poor soils. The issue is the unused nitrogen, much of it converts to nitrous oxide. And nitrous oxide as a global warming gas is 300 times more potent than CO2. So when you apply chemical fertilizer, that which is not used, a significant portion of that off gases as nitrous oxide. This is why the Trudeau government brought in the request to mitigate by 30% the carbon footprint of the chemical nitrogen fertilizer industry. So high margin proprietary fertilizers, they increase crop productivity and dramatically less chemical fertilizer. For thousands of years, we had carbon bacteria that would die and then they would remain in the soil. And as we started to till the soil, we exposed that carbon to excess oxygen and it composts or volatilizes away. So, we've seen a significant depletion of carbon content in our soils, and we are using as a base material for 3 different fertilizers we have under development right now. I'm not going to name them tonight. I'm going to do that in short order, and we'll talk about it to the public as a whole. But we've got 3 different fertilizers. A common denominator is that they all use our diatomaceous earth as a base product. There are multiple reasons that this is a very effective fertilizer, including its pH and its carbon content. And so returning carbon to the soil is very important. The other thing that is becoming more and more an issue for farmers is that in the past we've done a broadcast application. So cover the whole field as opposed to targeting a root zone or a very specific area. If you're doing a broadcast fertilizer application, you typically can do 200, 300 pounds per acre. And there is a real aversion from the farming community because of the cost of fuel and the scarcity of labor. There are huge resources required for these broadcast applications. We are moving more and more towards seed drill, so putting your concentrated nutrient into the root zone for the plant. We call that a pop-up fertilizer. One of the fertilizers we're developing is a pop-up. 2 of the others greatly enhance the availability of various fertilizers, so nutrient use efficiency. So nutrient use efficiency is an area where Bill Gates is spending a lot of money, and so the general theme is to get the nutrients closer to the plant roots and become more efficient with how you deploy nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, or the 7 micronutrients. There are ways to greatly enhance the availability of calcium, of sulfur, of phosphorus, and we are working in that space, and stay tuned. I wish to say also that these are very high margin products, and as a small company, so the big fertilizer companies, they generally have 7, 8 SKUs. They make millions of tons of a various product, and everybody gets the same. We have the ability to do a custom fertilizer for a farmer and go direct to the farmer within our facilities. I think I already gave this quote a little bit early. If the $363 billion cement industry, if it was a country, it would be the 3rd largest emitter. And I promised several people in the room that I would not get into the chemistry, but there's a very, very simple chemical equation. And when you heat limestone, the building block of making, Portland cement, when you heat it to 900 degrees, there's an inorganic carbon in that called a carbonate. It's calcium carbonate. And that carbonate off gases and becomes calcium oxide, which is cement. the building block of cement, and CO2. So if you put 1,000 kilograms of limestone into the front end of a kiln, and you heat that kiln to 900 degrees Celsius, at the other end, you will have 560 kilograms of calcium oxide. It looks just like the limestone in appearance, but 440 kilograms of that rock is now CO2 in the air. So you're taking a source of inorganic carbon that is in the ground and you're putting it in the air. How do you get 900 C? You burn a bunch of hydrocarbons. You burn natural gas, you burn coal, you burn oil, you burn used tires, you burn plastic. But in any event, you burn a source of carbon. So the life cycle analysis, or the established average carbon footprint of cement kilns in North America, on average, a cement kiln produces 900 kilograms of CO2 to produce 1,000 kilograms or 1 ton of Portland cement. That's the dilemma of the industry. The carbon tax is going up every year. We have a natural gas dryer. We dry 50,000 wet tons of various industrial minerals, and we generate 4,000 tons of CO2, clean CO2 by burning natural gas. Last year, that was $50 a ton in carbon tax. That's 200,000. This year, it's $65 a ton. So it's increased by 30%. By 2030, the carbon tax will be $170 a ton. So if you do the math for the cement industry, right now they're selling cement for $300 to $375 a ton. Much of the industry is grandfathered, but I don't think that will be the status quo. If we're going to meet our emissions targets, something has to be done about this dilemma. So it's a huge global industry. Fund managers that manage trillions of dollars wrote a letter to the 5 biggest cement companies in 2019. We will not fund your infrastructure going forward if you don't address your carbon footprint. So we have 3 different solutions. The Romans figured out that, so the word pozzolan comes from the town of Pozzula. And when the Romans built the Pantheon, they cooked limestone, off-gassed the CO2, and they have the calcium oxide. And they figured out if they scraped the volcanic ash off the hillside in Pozzula, that they could make a cement that lasted longer and that was stronger. And we call that Roman cement. And the word pozzolan, or natural pozzolan, is a derivative of the town of Pozzula, where the Romans scraped and blended this, and as a testament to the longevity of Roman cement, the Pantheon in Rome is 950 years old. There's an argument, is it 925, is it 950, but it's over 900. It is a mixture of lime, cooked limestone, the building block of cement, and volcanic ash, and the volcanic ash is silica-based. So these pozzolans, or Roman cement, we figured out that post-consumer glass is a form of volcanic ash essentially made by humans. We melt silica to make glass, and it makes really good cement. However, when you make glass to drink from, they add sodium to help reduce the melting temperature and use much less energy to make the glass molten. And sodium's a very weak mineral. It has a Mohs hardness of about 1.5. A diamond has a Mohs hardness of 10, so you can scratch it with your thumb. If you leave the sodium in the glass, you're going to have a weaker concrete. So our team figured out that if we grind the glass very small, and we do it in a wet environment, we will release the sodium from the surface of the glass particle. And then that wastewater, if we bubble CO2, we make sodium rocks again. We reverse the process of making cement, and we turn CO2 into a rock. So we have patents pending in 156 countries. Ground glass as a replacement for cement has been approved since 2020, November. but we have a better mousetrap in that when we remove the sodium from the surface of the glass particle, it's 30% stronger, and by golly, we get to sequester CO2 in real time with the wastewater while we bring it to a more neutral pH and discharge a cleaner wastewater. So very exciting for us. Lafarge has signed, we've announced an agreement with Lafarge to build a pilot plant in Kamloops. But we didn't stop there. We have, I'm going to be very careful about providing estimates, but we have a huge volume or amount of natural pozzolan, volcanic ash deposits, which can be used just like the Romans. And thirdly, we knew that the supply of glass eventually would be consumed, and the consumption of Portland cement, the growth, I think it will surprise people. In 2011, there was 62 million tons of Portland produced in the US, continental USA. 10 years later, it was 92 million tons. Well, why is this happening? It's happening because we are not allowed to build stick frame. If you're in California and your house burns down, you're not getting insurance. If you build a plywood and 2x4 studs, 2x6, you can't get insurance. The Bahamas, when it was destroyed, Rick Fox from the LA Lakers, he's from the Bahamas. He's rebuilding large parts of the Bahamas with concrete homes so that they don't get destroyed by cataclysmic and more powerful climate change related storms every year. We constantly hear, this is a 1,000-year norm or a 100-year norm. I'm tired of hearing it. We're in a different era. It's not 100-year, the climate change is here, and we're seeing these things happen. And ironically, Portland cement is a huge contributor to climate change, but it also creates the material. The second most consumed material in the world every year is ready-mix concrete. 13% of that is Portland cement. The number one consumed material in the world every year is fresh water. So I just, before I flip to the next page, in addition to having a very large inventory of natural pozzolan and patent pending technology on pos glass, we looked and said, okay, if you can replace 20% of Portland with silica-based materials, so replace the lime-based materials with silica, make a stronger cement, there's not enough glass in the world. The number one material in the Earth's crust is oxygen, believe it or not, and number two is silica. But it is a crystalline or a lattice structure. And silica only works as a cement if it is amorphous or without crystal structure. The only way that happens is if you melt it and cool it rapidly. So I was concerned that the big cement companies would beat us to it. So a year ago I went to a really impressive Montreal-based company, Pyrogenesis, and I said, we'd like to partner with you to test a concept. We'd like you to use your plasma torches, and we'd like you to melt silica. And the silica content of the pos glass that we have is 74%. There are a whole bunch of other materials added to glass to make it glass. But there's lots of silica in the world, 95, 99% pure quartz, but it's a crystal. So we signed a $362,000 contract with Pyrogenesis, and in the next 6 weeks or so, the reactor they built for us, another reason why I'm here, I was at Pyrogenesis this morning, is that they will start making amorphous silica from the second most abundant material in the world, quartz. We will never run out of quartz. And when we originally started working with pos glass, industry told us maybe you can do 20, 25% substitution. We've seen testing where 50% substitution of Portland cement with our pos glass, and at 28 days, the concrete is stronger than the control group of 100% Portland. This is a massive industry, it's a massive problem, and we have a massive solution. 109 million shares out, and then fully diluted 152. We borrowed $11 million leveraged buyout, and we witnessed between buying it, and shortly thereafter we watched prime go up by 400 basis points. So the CPA and me got really nervous, and we were concerned about our interest costs, so we rationalized our inventory. We cut a bunch of SKUs and didn't reorder a bunch of packaging on private label, and we moved our customers to our branded product. We worked down large amounts of inventory that we had in chemicals from 1.38 million at the high when we acquired the company around that, and then down to 600,000 and ordering smaller amounts more frequently of citric. And we judiciously, at the end of our Q3 in January, we had our line of credit paid off. It had $2 million on it at the date of acquisition in February 2022. And at April 30th, we paid off all of our variable rate loans through a combination of cash from operations and a small financing. In that financing, 3 insiders did 450,000 of the 1.25 million. I did 150,000. Our CFO did 150,000, and our controlling shareholder did 150,000. So we put our money where our mouth is. I believe we're at an inflection point where we've had 15 months to get to know the business. We've instituted lean manufacturing. When I went there, Andrew was the leader. There was no support for lean. We required every single employee to do their white belt as a condition of employment. And now half of our management team has their green belt. Andrew's got a green belt in lean manufacturing, and he is passionate in bringing that. So major operational efficiencies. I believe we're at a transition point where we've got this base business, got a highly skilled workforce. We have materials, we have existing IP, we have IP under development, and the barriers to entry, you try to compete with us, you got to go find a mine, you got to build a plant, you got to get an air permit, 5 years from an idea to competing. And I don't say that flippantly, and I don't take competition lightly, but there are huge barriers to entry to do what we do. I am going to just go very quickly, because I think I'm running out of time. I don't have my watch on, but I think we've got a world-class team, advisory. I'm super proud. PhDs, engineers. A lot of these people I've known for decades and worked with them. I try not to burn bridges and have long-term relationships. Our CFO, in 2006, he was in the office next to me in a public accounting firm. In 2008, he had the highest mark in Canada of over 20,000 people that wrote either business valuation course exams or final. Chris had the highest mark in Canada, and then went on to be a very successful entrepreneur and accepted my request. I joke about it because he didn't need the job, and I asked him, why did you take this job? He said, I don't know how to say no to you, Harpur. So that's very exciting for me. Just finally, we have for those people that have come and seen us on a yearly basis, or Martin in 2018, you will see constant progress, constant innovation, constant improvement in manufacturing efficiencies. One example, we have one of our top 5 sellers. It sells for $10 US a bag. It's a product that we sell all over the States called Red Lake Earth. And the bags are pneumatically filled up. We call it a valve pack line. And each operator can do 60 bags in an hour. So Andrew came to me with an idea and said, I can buy a conveyor system that instead of bending down and manually stacking, for $15,000, I can double their output from 600 US an hour to 1,200, because they can do 2 bags in a minute instead of 1. And we implemented that. So if you want to start calculating the payback on that kind of, and so with the lean manufacturing, we're constantly improving. I say that simply to say that we have this base of operations from which we are growing this monstrous blue sky in both fertilizers and in cement. The common theme is that we're using waste byproducts from our legacy operations to produce these products, with the exception of Pause Glass, which is urban mining of waste glass. So my time's up, and I welcome, but the last slide, so this is for Martin. When he first came, we were in this fabric tent open on both ends, the gale force winds coming off the Okanagan Lake and it would, we measured the temperature inside in the summer. We were 56 degrees Celsius one day working in there. This is where we are today. So that's from the summer of 2018 to the summer of 2023. Went from 5 employees to 62. Less than 100,000 in revenue, I believe, in our first year. And I can't give you, we just finished our fiscal year, April 30th, but I can say for the first 3 quarters we did 15 million, and you can do the math. But so very excited for legacy growth and blue sky. I will also say we've spent a lot of money to date on R&D, and we're now looking to use other people's money. So we have a very extensive grant application program with both levels of government, and are looking for industry partners for us to commercialize other projects under development that we have within this company, using other people's money going forward. So you're not going to see quarter after quarter where we spend all of our cash flow on R&D. Thank you for your time, and I welcome any questions.
Steve, can you remind us of the ticker, please?
Plan, P-L-A-N.
Thank you.
Pause glass, is that precipitated silica?
Is it?
Pause glass compared to precipitated silica.
I don't know what that is. I can tell you it's amorphous silica. Pause glass is made by grinding post-consumer glass. I can get you the exact chemical composition, but I don't know the term you're saying.
Okay, no, because I always figured that when you do that with recycled glass, you end up with precipitated silica.
Oh, precipitated? No. No, it is amorphous silica. So this, when you melt silica to 1723 and then cool it at a rate of 5 degrees per second down to 1200, it will not reform a crystalline structure, and it will be highly reactive as a cement. So we are using amorphous silica that is made, glass is made by taking sand, quartz, and melting it into an amorphous product.
Okay. Thank you, appreciate it.
Can you give more info about your contract with Harpur? Like, what was the announcement?
$362,000. If we're successful, it's modeled very much like the HPQ, but in our case, we get to be 66 2/3, and they're 33 1/3 versus a 50-50. So we would be the majority owner, but we have to go into business with them, and we'd be proud to do so. The implications of being able to economically melt pure silica are monstrous. Our scientists believe that we can get to a 70% replacement of calcium with silica in cement blends. We've already done 50, and that's with glass that's only 74% silica. The silica we're working with now is 99% pure, and there are massive deposits of that within 3 hours of our operations in BC. We're using that as our base material. It all boils down to how much energy. So our contract was twofold. We had them vaporize post-consumer glass to see if we could make a product similar to silica fume, and I'm digging into the weeds because you're asking me, but if I get too technical here, just holler at me and I'll stop. But there was 2 phases to the contract. So I'm going to talk about energy consumption for something we all understand. Ice, water, steam. So when we think of ice, we think of putting energy in it, but there's actually less energy in ice than there is in water. It's a solid state. So how much energy does it take to turn ice into water versus how much energy does it take to turn water into steam? It's not even close. So creating a gas or vaporizing a material has huge amounts of energy versus melting. We haven't released the results, but it's not economic to vaporize a silica, we know that. What we are extremely excited to learn is if it is economic to melt silica. And in the event that we can do it with a plasma, and they've been building the reactor. I was there this morning. They've been building it for the last 4 months, and it's imminent to start testing the material. Once they produce the material for us under the contract, they have to produce 600 grams. And we've requested to pay a little more to get more so that we can test more. And we have our own in-house fully equipped concrete lab. So we can blend the material, test its compressive strength, and I can't wait to do it.
On that note, can you talk about that reactor? And is this like a pilot reactor that you're doing with pyrogenesis, and you're looking to potentially scale to a bigger reactor, kind of similar with HPQ with the Gen 2 quartz reduction reactor to the Gen 3 quartz reduction reactor? Is that what you're looking to do?
So you're adding a level of detail that for HPQ, they're making silicon, we're making amorphous silica. But the concept is there. Pyrogenesis has world-class patented technology in the efficient use of plasma for the transfer of heat. And we are seeking to see if we can economically transfer heat from a plasma to melt and then subsequently cool crystalline silica or quartz and make it into, so essentially with post-consumer glass, it's made for you to drink. And there's a whole bunch of things in it that are not great for cement. When we make a glass for cement, we are making a tailor-made, and it only has silica in it. And the higher your silica content, the stronger your cement. The ramifications for this globally is that every time you replace 1 ton of Portland with a silica-based, the difference in the carbon footprint, and we know that the average carbon, you make 900 kilograms of CO2 to make 1 ton of Portland. We believe it's a fraction of that to melt silica, especially if you're using hydroelectricity here in the province of Alberta, or you're doing it in the province of BC or the province of Manitoba using hydro. You've got it dramatically, but it will end up ultimately being how much energy. The theoretical energy numbers are extremely encouraging to us, but theory has to be put into practice. We're in the trenches now. Stay tuned over the next couple of months. But very, very exciting. It's just one of 3 of these massive blue sky events that we're working on to replace Portland.